Welcome back to On the Same Page. We are on Daf Ayin Ches Amar Aleph 78a of Maseches Kiddushin, the very bottom line of the page. Towards the end of the line it says Amar le Rav Nachman le Rava. And they're discussing a pasuk in Yechezkel, which we left off, talking about the pasuk there says the following. It says, Ve'amana ugrusha lo yikachu lahem. It's talking about Kohanim, or a Kohen Gadol, as we'll see. It says, Almana ugrusha lo yikachu lahem lanashim. They shouldn't take a widow or a divorcee as a wife, as wives. Ki'im besulos, except for besulos virgins, mizera beis Yisrael, from the seed of the house of Israel. We saw last week there were different opinions about what that meant. And then it says, V'ha'almana asher tiyah almana mikohen yikachu. But a widow who's a widow from a Kohen, they could take as a wife. So it's a little bit hard to figure out what this pasuk is saying, because in general we know that only Kohen Gadol can't marry an almana widow. A regular Kohen could. And a regular Kohen can marry any widow, not just a widow of another Kohen. So we're going to have to figure out what this pasuk is saying. So Amar le Rav Nachman le Rava. Rav Nachman said to Rava, top of the next page, Hi Kra, this pasuk, Reisha beKohen Gadol v'Seifa beKohen Hedyot, is the first half of the pasuk talking about a Kohen Gadol, and then it switches in the middle to talk about a regular Kohen without telling you? Because the first half says that they cannot marry a widow, and the second half says, but they could marry a widow from a regular Kohen, a widow of a Kohen. So who can't marry a widow? Only a Kohen Gadol. So the first half is talking about a Kohen Gadol. Who could marry a widow? Not a Kohen Gadol. So only a regular Kohen. So the second half seems to be talking about a regular Kohen. So that was what Rav Nachman asked Rava, and Amar Le'in, he said, yeah, it's switching in the middle. So then he asked him, Ukasav kra hachi? Are there verses written like that? Like that seems strange that it would switch in the middle. Amar Le'in, he said yes. So Rava said yes, we find other examples of this, and then he gives an example. D'chsiv, it says in Shmuel Aleph, V'ner Elokim terem yichbeh, before the candle of God had gone out, U'Shmuel shocheh b'Heichal Hashem, and Shmuel was lying in the Heichal Hashem, in the temple of God, in the Mishkan. Now that's a problem, because how could Shmuel be resting, lying down in the temple of Ahalo? But don't we know, Ein Yeshiva Ba'azara Elul Malchei Beis David Bilvad. The only people who are allowed to sit down even in the Azara, in the temple gathering place, in the temple itself, is our Malchei Beis David, our kings from the house of David. And Shmuel was not a king from the house of David, so how could Shmuel be lying there? Ella, so rather you have to read the pasuk like this. Ner Elokim terem yichbeh b'Heichal Hashem. You read it like this. The candle of God, before it had gone out, in the Heichal of Hashem, Ushmuel shochev, and Shmuel was lying b'mekomo, but in his own place. So you have to parse the pasuk. The pasuk, again, it actually says, V'ner Elokim terem yichbeh. The candle of God before it had gone out, Ushmuel shochev, Shmuel was lying, B'Heichal Hashem, in the Heichal, in the temple of Hashem. So you have to say that it's before the candle had gone out, in the temple of Hashem, Shmuel was shochev, Shmuel was lying down, and then he had experienced the nevuah there. So there we have a pasuk that we kind of interrupt, we break it up without it being clear from the pasuk itself. So same thing over here. We're going to say the first half is talking about when it says they can't marry an almana, can't marry a widow, that's the Kohen Gadol. And then when it says they could take widows of other Kohanim, that's talking about regular Kohanim. So now the Gemara examines the second half of the pasuk. It says, V'ha'almana asher tiyah almana mikohen yikachu. It says if there's a widow who's a widow of a Kohen, they could take them as wives. So, as we said, that's talking about a regular Kohen who's allowed to marry a widow. But still, we have a problem. Mi Kohen ing and mi Yisrael lo. He's only allowed to marry a widow if she's the widow of a Kohen, but not Yisrael. Where does that come from? So says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. This is what the pasuk is saying. Mikohen yikachu, from Kohanim they can take, meaning Mishar Kohanim yikachu, from amongst the regular Kohanim they can take. They can take widows. So it's not saying the widow of a Kohen, it's saying Almana Asher Tia Almana, a widow who will be a widow, which is a strange thing to say, but that's what we're saying right now. A widow who will be a widow, Mikohen yikachu, from amongst the Kohanim they could take her. Meaning from amongst the regular Kohanim. That's how you have to read the pasuk, and it's not saying specifically widows of Kohanim, it's saying regular Kohanim can take widows as wives. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Tanya Nami Hachi. The Gemara says we have a brisa that also expresses this. Mikohen yikachu, from Kohanim they shall take, it means Mishar Kohanim yikachu. From amongst the rest of Kohanim they can take widows as wives. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Mina Messian lekahuna yikachu. Now what it's saying is, it's not saying from the widows of Kohanim, but from the widows of those who you'd be allowed to marry their widows, or their daughters. And it's Rabbi Yehuda l'taimei, this would be Rabbi Yehuda according to his reasoning to Amar, who says, we talked about Rabbi Yehuda's opinion last week, in our Mishnah he said, Bas ger zachar kebas chalal zachar. He said that the daughter of a male convert is like the daughter of a halal, of a male halal, that the daughter of a convert has the status of a convert and can't marry a Kohen. And Rabbi Yehuda has a rule, Kol she'ata nosei bito, ata nosei almanaso. Anyone whom you'd be allowed to marry his daughter, you can marry his widow, because she'ata nosei bito, iata nosei almanaso. But if you can't marry his daughter, then you can't marry his widow either. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that anyone whose daughter would be, and this may not be unique to Rabbi Yehuda, it just might be unique. I'm not sure if this part is unique to Rabbi Yehuda or not, but this rule has extra implications for Rabbi Yehuda, because he has a pretty stringent position in terms of who is disqualified from marrying Kohanim. So Rabbi Yehuda would say, let's say you have a convert, so we know that Rabbi Yehuda holds that the daughter of a convert, even if only the father is a convert, the daughter of a convert will have the status of a convert and can't marry a Kohen. Now Rabbi Yehuda would say that anyone whose daughter you can't marry his widow either. So if this convert was married to a regular Israelis, a born Jew, and then he died and she was a widow, so she becomes disqualified from marrying a Kohen according to Rabbi Yehuda. And so the pasuk would read, according to Rabbi Yehuda, when it says, Almana asher tia almana mikohen yikachu, a widow who would be a widow from a Kohen you can take as a wife, what it means is a widow who's a widow from someone whom you're allowed to marry his daughter. A Kohen's allowed to marry his daughter, so then you could take his widow too. But if you can't marry his daughter, then you can't marry his widow. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And that's what he would read into the pasuk. Okay. The Gemara now goes back to the Mishnah, back on Ayin Zayin Amar Aleph, and the last opinion in the Mishnah was the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, who said, Af ger shenasa gioris pito ksher l'kun. Rabbi Yossi had the most lenient position in terms of the offspring of converts, and he said even if both parents are converts, the mother and the father, as long as the child is born after their conversion, then the child is not considered a convert and is allowed to marry. The daughter will be allowed to marry a Kohen. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Hamnuna Mishmei de Ula. Rav Hamnuna saying the name of Ula, Halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, that the daughter of converts is not a convert, is allowed to marry a Kohen. V'chein Amar Rabba Bar Chana, and Rabba Bar Chana says this as well, Halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. However, says the Gemara, Miyom Shechar Beis HaMikdash, but from the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Nagu Kohanim still ba'atzman. The Kohanim practiced extra stringency upon themselves, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, to conduct themselves in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said that if both parents are converts, then the child is also the status of a convert and will not be able to marry a Kohen. So, but if only one parent is a convert, then the daughter is not a convert. So the Kohanim, after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara says we're stringent in accordance with Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and if both parents were converts, then they would not marry the daughter. Amar Rav Nachman says, Amar li Huna, Huna told me, Rav Huna told me, Ba limlach, if a Kohen will come and ask you a shaila, I have here the daughter of two converts, am I allowed to marry her? So Marim lo Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Then we would, if you asked, we would rule like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov and say you shouldn't marry her. But if you already married her, we would not take her away from him, we would not make him get divorced. Rabbi Yossi, in accordance with Rabbi Yossi, who says that it's okay. So lichatchila, from the outset, if they ask, we would say it's best not to. It's best to be stringent like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. But if they were already married, then we would say, okay, they can remain married. We can rely on Rabbi Yossi, b'diavad, after the fact, that they could stay married, that this is permitted, this daughter of converts is allowed to marry a Kohen. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Ha'omer b'ni zeh mamzer. If one says, my son, this son, he's a mamzer. Eino ne'eman. He's not believed. So a man is not believed to declare that his son is a mamzer. Va'afilu shnei modim. Afilu shnei modim. Even if both parents agree, it's not just the father, it's the mother too. They're not trusted, they're not believed, and or at least we don't accept their testimony, and the child is not a mamzer. Mamzer. What if the child's not even born yet? The mother is pregnant. There's a woman pregnant, and they say the child's a mamzer. It's from a forbidden relationship. It's from an adulterous relationship. So again, einam ne'emanim, they are not believed to declare their child a mamzer. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ne'emanim, but Rabbi Yehuda says they are believed. And the Gemara is going to say Rabbi Yehuda's arguing on both cases, not just in the case where they're talking about the fetus, the pregnant mother, but even in a case where the child's already born, Rabbi Yehuda says that they are believed to say that the child is a mamzer. Okay, now the first half of the Mishnah had said, if one says, my son is a mamzer, he's not believed. And even if both parents say the child's a mamzer, they're not believed. Ask the Gemara, Mai va'afilu shneim. What do we mean, even if they both say? What would change if the mother also says it? What's being added that even if the mother says it, they're still not believed? So the Gemara explains, Ulomi ba'i amar. It's in the style of it doesn't need to say it. Meaning, Lomi ba'ihu, you understand, it's not really surprising. It's not a question that he's not believed on his own. Dilo kimle, because he doesn't really know. I mean, he doesn't know what his wife did, who she had relations with, whether this child is his or not. So if he just goes and declares, it's not my child, it's understandable that we shouldn't believe him because he doesn't necessarily know. But says the Gemara, but even she, dekimla, that she knows if she had a forbidden relationship, and that the father, that maybe she's not pregnant from her husband but from someone else, and the child's a mamzer, still lo mehemna, we still don't believe her. The Torah does not grant the parents the credibility to make such a declaration about the child. You would need an actual testimony from witnesses. Then we'll add, it's not only in the case where the child's already born. Now I understand, there you have a child in this world. He comes into the world and we assume he's a kosher child. So that gives him a chazaka. He has a chazaka, he has an established assumption that he's a kosher. So for his parents now to come and say, no, by the way, he's a mamzer. So there I understand we could say they're not believed because they're trying to override an established assumption. But even a fetus, that does not have an established assumption of kashrus, it's not even born yet, he's not in the world yet. So maybe you would say there that since he doesn't have an established assumption of kashrus, of being a kosher child, there we would believe the parents. Still, Mehemni, that's why the Mishnah comes and says, no, even there the parents do not have the credibility to passel, to disqualify their child as a mamzer. It would have to have come through witnesses that, testified to her having relations with someone, and I don't know exactly how it would be proven who the father is. In general, we have a rule that ro bilos achar abal, that the majority of relations we assume were with her husband, and therefore we would assume, even if we know that she had relations with somebody else, that the father is the father, the husband is the father. I guess you could have a case where we know that the father wasn't around, and there was another man around. So if there's witnesses to that, then they would be trusted. But or if you could have other cases. She was married to someone else and she didn't get a good get. She's still really married to the first guy. So you have situations. But the point is, the Mishnah is saying we don't just rely on the word of the parents. They are not given that credibility. You would need a proper two witnesses to give this testimony. The Rashi on the Mishnah explained that the reason why the parents are not believed is because they are related to themselves, and so they're testifying something about themselves that they are. A person cannot be a witness in their own case, so that's why they cannot be believed. Okay. Now the Gemara continues and it brings the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Ne'emanim. Rabbi Yehuda says no, they are believed. The Torah gives them that credibility, or at least gives the father that credibility. Kiddushin, like we learned in a brisa, and this is something we had previously back on Daf Ayin Daled, not too far back. We have a brisa that says Yakir Yakir. So the pasuk says, with regards to a father has two sons, and one is the son of the hated wife, and one is the son of the loved wife, and the son of the hated wife is the Bechor, and the pasuk says, Es ha-Bechor ben ha-sinua Yakir. The Bechor, the firstborn, the son of the hated wife, Yakir, he should acknowledge or recognize Lases lo pishnayim, to give him the double portion, because a firstborn son gets a double portion of inheritance. So it says, Yakir, he should acknowledge him, or he should identify him, meaning Yakireno lacherim, that he can identify him for others. That we learn from there, the father is trusted to identify who's the Bechor, who's the firstborn. Mikai Amar Rabbi Yehuda, and from here Rabbi Yehuda said, Nemar Adam Lomar Zeh b'ni Bechor, that a man is believed to say, this is my firstborn, and he gets double portion. Because it says Yakir, that he's going to identify him. And then Rabbi Yehuda continues, and he says, Ukashem shenemar Adam Lomar Zeh b'ni Bechor, just like a man is trusted to say, this is my firstborn, he's also believed to say, this is the son of a divorcee, meaning if it is a Kohen, this is the son of a divorcee, a chalala. This is the son of a chalutza, a woman who had chalitza, which wouldn't necessarily make him into a halal, but I guess still doesn't look good. So he's believed to say all that. And also, what we're now adding on, based on our Mishnah, we see Rabbi Yehuda also holds he's even believed to say he's a mamzer, meaning he's believed to identify the status of his son. He can identify him as a firstborn, he can identify him as the son of a divorcee, a halal, and also as a mamzer. Now, where do you see this in the pasuk? So we discussed this last time. Tosfos, I think, brings a couple different explanations, but one of them is that you can read it into the pasuk that Yakir, he can identify not only who the firstborn is, but who's the ben hasenua. He can identify who's the son of a hated wife. What's a hated wife? A wife that is from a forbidden relationship. A wife that's a grusha, a divorcee that he's not allowed to marry. So he's able to identify the son as this is the son of a divorcee, meaning this is a halal. And so we see that he has ne'emanas, he has credibility to identify his son, to disqualify his son as a halal, and also we extend that he can identify him as a mamzer. That's Rabbi Yehuda's position. But Chachamim omrim eino ne'eman, and the Chachamim say no, he's not believed. They don't make that they don't learn that out. Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Rava. So Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak said to Rava, Bishlam al Rabbi Yehuda haina dichsiv yakir. So it makes sense according to Rabbi Yehuda. That's why the pasuk says yakir. Why does it say it? That he should be yakir. He should identify him. He should acknowledge him. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's the Torah is empowering him to be the one to identify who's the bechor, who's the firstborn, who's a pasul, who's disqualified, etc. Elul Rabbanan, but according to Rabbanan, yakir lamali. Why does the Torah need to say yakir, that you should identify him? So he's not believed to identify someone as a pasul. So the answer is going to be bitzarech hakera. It's where he needs to identify the firstborn. There will be cases where he needs to identify the firstborn. Why would he need to identify the firstborn? To give him a double portion. So the Torah has to give him, Ne'emanos has to give him credibility to be able to say, if we don't know who the firstborn is, he's allowed to identify the firstborn and thereby grant the firstborn his rightful double portion. The Gemara asks Pshita, that's obvious that he should be able to do that. Lama likra? Why do I need a pasuk to tell me that the father is believed to identify who the firstborn is? Migo dibayi misvale matana. Migo yavile. So the Gemara says he can, of course he's believed to say who the firstborn is, because he has a migu. A migu means he could have accomplished this in another way, which should give him credibility. He could have, let's say he had ill intentions. He wanted to give the wrong son a double portion. So there's an easy way to do that. He could just give him a big gift while he's still alive. He's allowed to give gifts. So migu, since if he was really trying to cheat and misidentify the firstborn and give the wrong son double portion, he could have just done it as a gift. But instead he's saying, no, this is the firstborn. So we can believe him that it's indeed the firstborn, because if he had ill intentions, he could have accomplished it in a different way. So why do I need a pasuk to tell me that he's trusted to identify the firstborn? I can deduce it logically through this migu. So the Gemara says, no, because there are limits on that migu. If the father only inherits something after he identifies him, so what's going to be with those possessions? In other words, it's true at this moment. He says, this is my firstborn son, and he should get double. So we'll say, well, he could have given him it as a gift, and so he could have done it anyways. If he would really have ill intentions, he would have just given him a big gift. Yeah, but he can only gift him what he has now. But what he's going to earn or inherit later, he can't gift now. It's a davar shelo bo le'olam. You can't give away something that's not yet in the world. So a gift has a limit. A gift, you could give him a double portion of what you have now, but it won't affect the future. But yakir, if he identifies the firstborn, it affects the future. And so even possessions that he'll later get will go double portions to this guy. So that would not be accomplished. The migu wouldn't work for anything to empower him to give after this moment. And so we need the pasuk to tell me that he's believed to say he was the firstborn, because that accomplishes more, because that will give this son, a double portion, even on things to come later. So that's what the Torah is bringing out to us by saying yakir, he's believed to identify the firstborn. I would not have been able to figure out from Amigu, and it's only because the Torah grants him ne'emanas, credibility, we believe him who the firstborn is, and that firstborn will get double portion. That's because you can't gift something that's lo bo le'olam, that's not yet in the world. But Rabbi Meir damar adam magna davar shelo le'olam. But according to Rabbi Meir, holds that a person could grant something, gift something that's not yet in the world, so then the migu should extend there. So again, why do I need a pasuk to tell me that he could identify the firstborn? I could figure out from a migu according to Rabbi Meir. Migu that he could say, I'm giving you half of my possessions that I have now and half of everything that I'm going to earn in the future. sorry, not half, double portion. A double of what all your brothers have. I could give you a double portion of what I have now, and a double portion of the inheritance of whatever I'm going to get later. He could have given that as a gift, so he should be believed to say, you're the firstborn. With that migu, and why do I need the Torah to tell me that he's believed to say who the firstborn is? Gemara answers, Shenaflu lo kishu goses. We still need it for possessions that he comes into possession for as a goses. A goses is somebody who's very sick on their deathbed. And there's an exception, even according to Rabbi Meir, to the rule that somebody could give away something that's lo ba le'olam. You can only give away something that's not yet in the world if, when it comes into the world, you are of a bardas. You have the mental capacity to give it away then. So you could set it in motion before. I could say right now, anything I'm going to earn in the next 20 years, I'm gifting to you. But that only works if the person has the mental capacity in the next 20 years to give it. It just was affected already earlier. But if a person is not in the mental state of mind to be able to give something away, so then it would not work to gift it now for that time. So even according to Rabbi Meir, there is a time that there could be a time at least where a person would be unable to gift something, and therefore even if a person would say, now I'm gifting you a double portion of everything I'm going to earn, but if he would earn something while he was in a state of goses, on his deathbed where he's not in the mental capacity to give something away, so then it wouldn't work. So, but as a firstborn, this firstborn would still get double portion of that. So that's what's accomplished by identifying who the firstborn is. That or that's why the Torah has to tell me that he's credible, he's believed to say who the firstborn is, because there are some things that the migu is limited. It wouldn't extend. It wouldn't give him the credibility to give away something or to make us believe him with regards to possessions that he would only inherit or acquire when he was in no longer of a mental state to transact. But because the Torah says that he's believed to say who the firstborn is, so that's everything's good now. He identifies the firstborn, and wherever he inherits, after his passing, the firstborn will get a double portion of that inheritance based on his identification of who the firstborn is. And that's why, according to Rabbi Meir, it's still necessary for the Torah to say Yakir and to say that the father is believed to identify who the firstborn is.